independent project 6-6. I've already downloaded my start file, and I'll be coming back and forth between my file and the instruction sheet. So first step, or the second step, is to determine the net present value. So we're going to use the NPV function. So we're going to be on the financial sheet tab and we'll select cells H5. So financials in H5. Then we're going to use the NPV function, and then it tells you how to set it up. So the rate is 4.25%, and then you'll select the range, and then at the end we're going to edit our function. So I'm going to come up to the formulas tab, and if you don't remember where it's at, just click on the insert functions and type in what function you want to search for, and then I hit OK. So my rate is 4.25%. You want to include the percent in that. And then the value is D7 through D13. Oh, let's go back. There we go. So my value is D7 through D13. And then I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to add on to the end. So what I'm going to do at the end is I'm just going to add my plus D4 and plus D5 to add in some of the costs. And so I end with a net present value of $22,933.93. Okay, next step. Step number 3, we're going to use the transpose button. So what that does is right now our technicians are across here, so using up 2 rows and several columns. What we want to do is keep it several rows and only 2 columns. And so we're going to select A4 through A10. So A4 through A10. And then I'm going to do the transpose button, or the transpose function. And I want to transpose the names across A1 through G1. And then if I just hit OK, it will only put it into that first one. So I have to hit Control-Shift-Enter for it to put all of the names in there. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the last name, or sorry, the first names. So transpose again. And then got my first names here. Oops. Let's try that again. And then again, if I just hit enter, it only puts it in the first one. So I'm going to change that. And let's try it again. I just wanted to show you what it did. And then I come in, do my A2 through G2 and Control-Shift-Enter, and that puts in my names. The next step I want to, I'm going to copy those and just paste the values in there in cell D4. Because right now if I copy them, it's going to copy the formula. So I'm just going to select them and copy. And then in D4, I'm going to do my paste options and down on values. So I'm only grabbing the values out of there and not the formulas because I'm going to use those again. All right, step number 4, you're going to use the concat function. If you don't have this on yours, then you'll just use the concatenate function. Some versions of Excel have it and some don't. We're still trying to figure out which ones do. It said that Office 365 has it, but I don't use Office 365 and I still have concat. So we're not quite sure exactly which ones do and which ones don't. We're still trying to figure that out. So we're going to be on our summary sheet right here. Sorry, I started that before I started talking. We're going to be on the summary sheet, and what we're doing is we're taking our technicians, and right now they're in 2 columns, and we're going to add them, kind of put them together so that they're in 1 column. So I'm going to be up in my formulas tab and I'm going to use my concat, or if I don't have that, then you can use concatenate and hit OK. My first text is going to be my last name. Sorry, the last name of my technicians. And then the text 2 is going to be, we want it to be a space. I'm going to do quotation mark, comma, space, quotation mark, because we want it to say Boyd, comma, James in there. And then my text 3 is my James. And when I hit OK, I've got Boyd, comma, James right in there. So that's how I can take 2 columns and make it into one. And then on my next step for E, it says to copy the formulas down, but we want to preserve the borders. So if I just clicked this and copy down, it would not keep the same borders. So what I'm going to do is just copy, and then I'm going to highlight my section right here, and I'm going to only paste the formulas because I want to keep that solid border there with the dotted lines in between, so that this remains the same. So step number 5, number 5, we're going to use a SUMIFS function to total the number of patients by procedure and by technician. So I want to be on my procedures tab. And so what we're doing is we are counting. So we're counting how many patients are a patient of James Boyd and their procedure is an MRI. So we're going to count the number. So that's what SUMIFS uses. So it's saying sum if you meet these 2 criterias. And so on our instructions, it says that we want to do by procedure and then by technician. So on number of patients, I'm going to actually first, I forgot I have to do this one. It says we're going to name our range as data. So on our procedures tab, we're going to select A5 through F41. And then we're going to come up to our formulas tab and define name, and we're going to name it data. But my caps is on, so make sure that you spell it correctly. Now I can come to my summary tab, and we're going to do a SUMIF function, so that's in our math and trig. Oops. Sometimes my mouse is a little touchy. So SUMIFS, because we have more than one criteria. So my sum range is going to be, if I come back to my procedures, it's going to be my number of patients. So I'm going to click and drag down to select all of that information, and then I want to make that absolute. So I'm going to use my function F4, or you can put the dollar signs in as well. And then my first criteria is going to be my procedure. So I'm going to come back to procedures here, and I'm going to select my image type column, and I'm going to make that absolute as well. And the criteria that we have here is our first procedure is MRI. And so I'm going to put in quotations MRI because I'm telling it that that is the procedure I want it to look up. I don't want it to look at anything else. And then the next criteria is my technicians. So I'm going to come back to procedures and I'm going to highlight technicians. And again, make that absolute. And in this one, my criteria is James Boyd. And so I don't want to type that whole thing out. What I can do is do an asterisk and type in Boyd and then an asterisk. So what that tells Excel is that it could have criteria or different. Let's come in here and just read this because it'll explain it better. This string means that any characters can precede or follow the word Boyd. And so what that means on here is that it's not just saying Boyd, but there's also a first name with it. So if I just had the last name there, I wouldn't have to have the asterisk. But by putting the asterisk, it's saying there's more characters that could be part of it. And so I hit OK, and that's the end of my formula. And if I look back on here, I can see that there are, if I look at all of the James Boyds, there's 4 patients here getting an MRI. And if I looked at James Boyd again, they're not an MRI, so it's not counting those. And so that's what that function does. Now I'm going to copy this down. And again, I want to keep my border, so I'm just going to hit copy and paste the formula. And it's all the same, but don't panic because we've got to go in and change our criteria. So we have to come in here and type in CT, and then I'm going to use my asterisk because there's more characters than that. And I'm going to come in and type in Doug. With my asterisk tells Excel that there's more characters. And you'll go through and you will change that for every single one. So ANG with an asterisk, and then and you really don't have to do a certain amount of characters. You can do 3 or 4, it doesn't really matter. And then come in here again, ANG. And if you think it's easier to do the formula every time, you can, or you can just come and change all the criteria. Either way. And then we've got an MRI, so we're going to keep that one. And we've got Olander is our last name. O-L-A. An MRI again, and Von Bank. So I'm going to come in and type in Von and enter. And then the last one is CT. Scan. Oops, get that quotation mark there. My asterisk, and then wood. We'll do that. And so that completes our sum if function right there. Now my when I copy, it kind of sticks on there, so just ignore that. Yours won't do that. We'll have those little dancing ants running around. All right, next step is step C or 6. We've already done that, and then 7. We're going to use a sum ifs total number to do patients by category and then location. So category and location is what we're doing on this one. So I'm going to come up and use my sum ifs function. And my sum range is we're going to count the patients again. So number of patients. Make that absolute. And then my criteria is, let's see, it's patient and then location. So we're going to do patients. Sorry, I gotta come back here. Patient category, not patients. Sorry, patient category. And I've got procedures in it twice, so I just have to come take that out. And then make that absolute. And my first patient category is schedule, so we're going to do asterisk. And then my next criteria is location. So I select my location and absolute value. And then my criteria is Appleton. I'm going to use my asterisk and hit enter. Or okay. And then, okay, before I actually copy this, I noticed that this F5 doesn't have an absolute value, so that's going to have an absolute value there. And then when I come up and copy and paste my formula, I have to go back in and change the criteria for this one. So this one is a walk-in. So I'm just going to type in walk and then green for Green Bay. And that completes my formula. Last thing that we're going to do, it says look for any correct format inconsistencies, that's like borders or whatever. And then last thing that we're going to do is we're going to calculate our times. So I'm going to come over to my times sheet and